Yes.
So Cody, first day of school Monday? I think the first day of class is actually Wednesday. Technically, they start Tuesday night. Yeah. But you know, they changed it. They've been doing orientation groups all summer. You know, they used to just do everything all in one weekend. Right. So, as an adjunct, I don't have to participate in orientation. So I'm woefully uninformed. As long as they show up on Wednesday night for my first one, I'll pay.
There you go. Good. Yeah, I dropped my daughter off last week. She's going to Denver.
Oh.
Down in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
So they got 2 weeks for all sophomore, juniors, and seniors.
Yeah.
And then classes the whole 2 weeks. Occasional job and get started so they know where around campus. And all. They have a meeting. Okay, good for them.
Yeah.
Marine science. Oh,
I just got the ARC. Oh.
It's been announced. His birthday is. He's being commercial.
Oh, really?
So he'll just be more general.
Yeah.
She'll be about a year. And y'all's department, y'all like.
So I.
Who's your zoning?
Oh. And they get accepted.
So we have a pre-vision. So the transportation.
Right.
Or True.
Everybody can.
Yeah.
Might be.
Oh, yeah. Stafford, that's how, you know, that's big.
He's over 3 years ago. That's why I still want to start. All staff, good. All
Then, all right, oh. Yeah, subdivision, or zoning, site plan, everybody. And actually.
Come out of city.
To
the city. Every truck going to that city limits.
Oh, that's.
Well, I was sort of, I didn't.
Oh, that's funny.
Good afternoon, welcome to the PTO meeting for August back in 2024. I have some opening remarks. First and foremost, is I'll keep the family, especially Jeremy Holmes, in mind, as his mother passed away earlier this week. He will not be here today. You would keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Also, before we get to speaker today, I've got a few comments. If we got a call.
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Clinton. Ms. White. Mr. Fidzikowski.
Here.
Mr. Chair.
Here.
Mr. Radford.
Here.
Allison. Here. Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Here.
Ms. Turk.
Here.
Mr. Holliday. Mr. Lyles. Stovall. Mr. Price.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Ms. Davinsky. John. And then finally, Mr. King.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you.
Finally.
Item 3, approval of consent agenda items. Item A, the approval of the agenda today. Item B, action on the June 24th RVTPO minutes, pages 3 through 23 of the packet. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to item 4, remarks by the chair. I mentioned about Jeremy. I'd like to go ahead and add a few more commercials before we get started. Today's first speaker. You all may have seen this. If you haven't, you can take a look at it now. This is going to be a public hearing tonight, or I should say a come and go cards. Represents VDOT there at Bonsack Elementary School for the Route 460 and alternate 220 projects. These projects total about $43 million of state and federal money. The largest one is the 460 220 alternate route intersection improvements, which is about $22 million. So come and go anytime between 5 and 7 tonight at Bonsack Elementary School, 5437 from Packard Drive. Next is Safe Streets and Community Meetings. I think everyone got a copy of this. Meetings are going to start soon, and it's going to be held regionally around the area. Very good. Look that over and try to attend one of those sessions. At this time, I'd like to introduce 2 new staff members at the commission. Amaya Matthews, the 2024 graduate of Virginia Tech, Go Hokies, with a degree in urban affairs and planning. Her will be assisting the transportation team on a number of projects. Welcome, and glad you could be here today. Hope you have a good time here at the commission working. And bring us a lot of good ideas too. Kevin Jinks is also a 2024 graduate of Virginia Tech, Go Hokies twice. Master's degree in urban and regional planning. He'll be working initially with the community development team on the FEMA hazard mitigation plan. Please welcome Kevin and Amaya to the team.
Thank you.
And so who's going to the game on this Saturday or next Saturday? Anyone going to Nashville, the game over there? Don't watch it. Very good. We look forward to having a speaker scheduled for the next 2 meetings. I will speak about the September meeting in a few minutes, along with colleague over here. I'm right. And he's got a story to tell us. In October, Colin Birch, senior planner with the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, will be here to provide an update on passenger rail expansion to the New River Valley. So we'll hear about that. Going forward, I'll have some further comments on item 7, that part of the agenda. Today, in 2024, the city of Roanoke was selected by the Department of Transportation to participate in the Thriving Communities Plan program, which provides technical assistance for the planning and the redevelopment or development of transportation and community revitalization activities. Over the last several months, the city and its stakeholders have held numerous public outreach meetings to engage the community on the future of the Williamson Road corridor. Dwayne D. Arden, manager of the City of Roanoke's Transportation Division, joins us today to provide an overview of this engagement process and an update on what they have learned so far. Wayne, podium is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here today. I'll share with you what we've been sharing with the community over the past couple of months. We are not yet finished with our visioning for Williamson Road, but I'm going to lay out the process that we're using. And this may be a good template as we go forward. But it's called Envision Williamson Road. We're going to talk about the what Envision Williamson Road is, the why we're going through the process, and how Envision Williamson Road is actually working. So what is Envision Williamson Road? How many folks have seen this definition before. Let me get out of the room. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Why am I putting that up there as it relates to Williamson Road? This is the third time that we are attempting to do something on Williamson Road. And we are intentionally pivoting how we are approaching the community and what we are listening for and what we're trying to learn through the process. We hope the third time is the charm and as we go forward. So let's talk about, okay, so the first time we went through this,
Bring it back up, just take that.
okay. It's okay. So the first time we started through this process was in 2016, and I realize you can't see it here, but the then Williamson Road Area Business Association Executive Director, Wendy Jones, and the then city engineer, who was Phil Shermer, worked together to create a potential plan and to address and beautify Williamson Road and come up with what might work. That plan was met with some of these signs you might see. This says no road diet. Those signs are still on Williamson Road. What does that mean? It means that the community didn't feel heard as part of that process. So again, we are intentionally shifting, making a pivot and trying to do this differently and better. So the second time we talked about Williamson Road, we worked with our partners at VDOT through the project pipeline process, using the OIP process and figuring out what might make sense on Williamson Road. In particular, we submitted a smart scale application in 2024, round 5, which is in 2022, that similarly would add sidewalks along 90% of the corridor. It would improve signalization, and it would improve crosswalks, really addressing and modifying Williamson so that it would be more pedestrian friendly. That project did not get funded. The cost benefit ratio was determined to be too high, and that's why it didn't get funded. So we're not there yet. Also, as part of that project, there was a lot of pushback from the community. So that's why we shifted focus, and the former city manager, Bob Cal, applied for this grant process, Thriving Communities, to try to do a template, achieve a template for what we're moving forward. So here we are, attempt number 3, and this is where we get to envision Williamson. So that's the what, but let's talk about the why. Why Williamson? Why is that important? Why are we going down this path a third time? It's really simple. Williamson Road is on the state's top 5%. This was in 2021 in terms of corridors for crash volume. And as part of the pipeline project, you can see these total number of crashes up here, 389. That number is not important. What you need to know is that is a top 5 within the state corridors for fatal crashes along this type of roadway for pedestrians and bicycles in particular. So that's the why in 2015. Where are we now? Within the city of Roanoke, Williamson Road has the highest number of crashes of all corridors within the city. Now you look at those numbers, that 389 number, that is along the 3-mile study area between Orange and Hirschberger. That's between 2015 and 2019. Between 2019 and 2023, between Compton and Truman, a 2-mile study area, that 293 number looks lower, doesn't it? But when you factor in that this is a 3-mile study area and this is a 2-mile study area, this number is actually higher than what we did in 2015. So the numbers are going the wrong direction. Simply, between 2019 and 2023, 49 people within the city of Roanoke died in a traffic crash of some sort. 18 of those were killed while walking. On Williamson Road, 18% of those 9 fatalities were on Williamson between Orange and Airport. So 33% of the citywide total, 6 of those wrong Williams. Six of those walking wrong Williamson Road. So Williamson Road is a deadly corridor for pedestrians in particular, and that's why we keep going back to Williamson. What do we want to do? How do we want to do this different? As I said, 18% of the fatalities on Williamson between Orange and Airport, 6 of those people were walking, 33% of the citywide total. Now let's compare that to Orange Avenue. You think we know that Orange Avenue and Route 460 is a corridor of significance. We also know that we have crash volume on there that's significant. But if you look at within the city of Roanoke, 6 fatalities on 460. Williamson Road, 9 fatalities. This is 8 miles within city limits of 460. Compared, 3 miles, 9 fatalities on Brandon Avenue, the entire 4 miles worth in Brandon, we have 5 fatalities. 4 miles, 5 fatalities. 8 miles, 6 fatalities. Williamson Road, 3 miles, 9 fatalities. That's why we keep going back to Williamson. We've got to do something. So that's the what and the why. Let's talk about the how. Again, this is an intentional pivot. We're trying to do it different. Trying to get input. We're trying to get consensus from the community. That's how we get to envision Williamson Road. We've got, I'll skip over the. Very good. We've got a steering committee, which is 21 or 23 members, depending upon which alternates attend, but representatives from everything from the Roanoke Library Foundation, all the neighborhoods along Williamson. We've got the Greater Williamson Road Area Business Association, and I'm not going to read through all this, but anybody that might have stakeholder input on this. We are meeting routinely, and we will continue to do that through May and June of 2025 to try to get to consensus of what to do on Williamson. We have staff support on this, and then we have USDOT Thriving Communities Program. Nelson Nygaard is the primary consultant that's helping us through this process. So there's 3 phases to this process. Create a vision, that's where we are. Now, originally, this was through July. We have extended this out through October because we are not yet done. There are still some dichotomies. We still don't feel like we've gotten enough input in terms of creating a vision. Once we have a vision, then we can think about reviewing the choices. So what we have said from the beginning is, what do we want for the community? What do we want for the corridor? And then let's design a road project that gets us to that end. Lots of folks are focused on, is this 2 lanes or 4? Bike lanes or not? That's not what this is about. This is really about what do we want for the community, and then design the road project to fit and get to that desired outcome. This is a once in a generation investment in Williamson Road. We've got to do it in such a way that gets to the long-term outcomes that we all want and all need. Once we get through the visioning process using the steering committee and the input that we have garnered to date, then we'll go through all the choices. What are the plethora of choices available to us in terms of what a project might look like? And then we'll go through and select the options. Again, we have through May and June of 2025 to get this done with consultants. Really, this is what we're trying to do. This is council's vision overall. The city of Roanoke is a safe, caring, economically vibrant community in which all have equitable opportunities to live, learn, work, play, prosper. Simply, is Williamson Road currently a safe, caring, and economically vibrant community in which all have equitable opportunities to live, learn, work, play, and prosper? That's the question before every community that I go into. What does that look like? You see these are down here in red. You see those boards back behind us. Live, learn, work, play, prosper. So I take Post-it notes and we have the community members. How do you experience Williamson Road today? And then what would you like to experience on Williamson Road in the future? And everyone puts their input. And we are garnering that input, trying to put together what a future vision for Williamson might look. What does it take to make Williamson Road more safe? What does it take to make Williamson Road more comfortable? What does it take to make Williamson Road more useful? there are over 30 businesses along Williamson Road that are vacant. What does that look like? What could be helpful if you live, work, or go along that corridor? What would you like to see there? What would make Williamson Road more interesting? Artwork, beautification, what does that look like? Those are the questions that we're trying to garner from the community. There's two ways to provide an input. There's the electronic version, and then there's these boards that we've been working through the community. I would welcome the input from everybody sitting around this table. I know some of you experience Williamson Road on a regular basis, some do not. That's okay. Whatever you know about Williamson, I would welcome that input and to add that to the collective that we've already garnered. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody might have.
Any questions? Yes, Mike.
One compliment. That was a great presentation. Do you have studies that show kind of where the traffic is starting and getting off Williamson Road, kind of broken down?
Studies that where traffic's getting on and off of Williamson.
Is everybody getting on that orange and driving all the way out, or are they getting on at various places?
We don't have it for the corridor wide.
Okay.
We certainly know that there are folks that go to Williamson as a destination, and there are some that are commuting. There's a good mix of both. I will say that there is significant number of commuting, but there's also people that go to Williamson for the restaurants and for the grocery stores and all the other places on Williamson that are
I'm
just.
saying as somebody that uses it quite frequently and with a staff that likes to eat along Williamson Road, I might be able to get a little feedback. But this has been good information.
Any other questions?
I got one.
Yeah.
Dwayne, I guess y'all have looked at the fatalities and if it was weather related, speed, alcohol, drug, whatever. I guess you have that laid in.
With our VDOT consultant help, and also we are working through a Vision Zero process. We have a consultant on board that's looking citywide at crash volume, what the contributing factors are.
Okay, and then one other comment. So I did hear a couple of years ago where people live in the county work in Williamson Road and they were complaining that they didn't want it to become a 2-lane street. And I guess that's what happened in 2022.
Correct.
Okay.
And in
Gotcha.
2016, both of those were what they call a road diet. What a terrible term, right? Why would you call something a diet? But that's not engineering correct. But that's one of those where it would go from a 4-lane configuration to a 3. So you'd have one travel lane in each direction plus a center turn lane.
Yeah.
I won't talk about the pros and cons of that approach at this point, because really we're talking about what do we want for the community, and then let's talk about choices.
Good approach.
Is there a apparent difference at all where you have the median that was added to the northern part of Williamson? Does it operate differently in terms of some of that performance than the southern?
It does. Excellent question, Ken, and I appreciate you asking that. So where we have installed the center turn lane between Angel north to Hirschberger, that reduced the rear end crash volume by 77%. 77%. And that has continued since it was installed back in the early 2000s. So that is a really good rationale for why a center turn lane might be a good option. Again, I don't want to talk and influence decisions on what the community might think would be the ultimate outcome. At this point, we're still thinking of what do we want for Williamson? Do we want the school children that go to Breckenridge and Preston Park Elementary, do we want them to be able to walk across Williamson? Do we want the neighbors that adjoin to be able to get to the businesses other than in a vehicle? Those types of things are really the questions that we're trying to ask and get input on at this point. Thank you, Ken, for asking that question. Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering how did the steering committee get put together? What types of folks or stakeholders are on that committee?
Yeah. Well, let me circle back to that just a little bit. So we worked with some of the folks we already knew. So the neighborhood services group certainly gave us all the presidents of the neighborhood organizations that are within the Northeast Quadrant that would routinely use Williamson, but also other stakeholders. We've got the Williamson Road Branch Library. We've got the Williamson Road Business Forum. We've got the Virginia Department for Blind and Vision Impaired. Why is that? Because at this moment, Williamson Road is not at all set up for folks that have impaired vision. That voice needs to be heard as part of anything that we might consider going forward. Bus Riders Advocacy Group, Valley Metro is represented. Tori is one of our partners on this. We've got, who else? Blue Ridge Literacy, and that's trying to get into the communities that wouldn't necessarily participate in this program. That's why Ahu's on this, the committee for us, Pedal Safe Roanoke. Who else? City schools, I talked about Breckenridge and Preston Park Elementary being on Williamson Road and that being an important part of the process. And then Blue Ridge Independent Living Center, again, trying to make sure that whatever we do on Williamson serves all the community, not just those who may drive. Thank you, appreciate the question.
Any other question? Good presentation. Good community and steering committee involved, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, but one
Do you have a
reminder,
question?
Wayne has posted notes for your comments. You can leave them up there after the meeting. We'll collect.
I'll pass those around here.
All right, moving on to item 6 on the agenda, consideration of resolution of functional classification update, pages 24 and 25 of your meeting packet. There is some action required, but first, Chair recognizes Jonathan Stanton, to give us the scoop on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, members of the TPO board. So I'm going to discuss with you all today functional classification within kind of the TPO area of Roanoke. So back in April of 2024, we received notice from VDOT Central Office that they are updating the functional classification of roadways statewide. And they forwarded us some materials to review and get back to them. So just as a little background, this is another one of those census triggered updates that happened because the census was updated. VDOT Central will now be updating functional classification for roadways. And that's why this is happening now. They are conducting an update using a review and edit methodology, as they call it. It seems they'll have a computer or a kind of an algorithm, kind of automatically review everything. And for more unique situations, they'll go in person and kind of review those and then make any edits that are necessary. So we have isolated functional classification updates that fall within the TPO area. And we'll review those kind of in the upcoming slides. And we've also presented these updates to TTC as well back in July. So in the last slide, you'll see VDOT would like an approval of just a confirmation of the coordination and sharing of information that's going on with this. So a little bit of background, what is functional classification? This is going to be really, really quick. Within a network of roads and streets, each road plays a different role, and functional classification is attempting to define those roles. So as you can see here, kind of you start at the very ground level, the local roads and streets. These are your small neighborhood streets and small roads that serve small businesses and many houses and things like that. They prioritize access. You are accessing places when you are using these kind of local roads. And so you start, you leave your house in the morning, maybe you start from a local road and you join a collector. Collector will, as its name implies, kind of collect from many local roads. You're starting to get a little bit higher traffic. There's more intersections with local roads to provide that access, but also some mobility. And then finally you get to arterial roadways, and these are large, very mobile, long roadways that prioritize kind of the movement of traffic. You have volume, you have speed, and you're not using them to access, you're using them to access other roads that then you get to your destination by. Finally, there are freeways, which are not on here, but freeways are limited access. They're even faster and even higher volume than arterial roads. So just as a little bit of background. So from the information that VDOT sent us, we identified 70 changes that fall within the RVTPO area. This might sound like a lot, but if we break it down, there are 42 related to adding or just cleaning up roadway segments around the area that kind of fully connect intersections, that kind of create a network that's worked and fully connected. We'll see examples of all of these in the upcoming slides. 27 are related to classifying highway on and off ramps or slip lanes. See some of those. And only one is related to a misclassified roadway segment. There are none related to new roads. But this was last done in 2014. So I suppose since then, we haven't had any major new roadways, arterials constructed. There is a link in the staff report. You all have a map in front of you as well that kind of highlights these changes. Or if you want, there's a QR code right here that you can follow as well. So these updates. Here is one of the 40 some odd adding or cleaning up roadway segments to fully connect intersections. The roadway network that VDOT has, their file, has US 220. This is Franklin, or alternate 220 and Brandon Road right here. So Franklin's two one-ways, a one-way segment here and a one-way segment here. And this is just creating a little connection right here so that the road goes all the way through. This is also a one-way up and a one-way down. And then this is one single segment. So it was connected like that, but we are adding this one so that there's a continuous, one way this way, and then they connect into one road. That's 42 of the changes. It's small things like this. This is maybe 10 feet of segment. The next one is classifying highway on and off ramps. Here is 581 and Valley View Boulevard. These are all the on ramps, the bridge crossing, the off ramps, things like that. They're adding these in. They were not present in the previous one. And finally, here is our singular misclassified segment. It is of US 220 at Catawba Road. This is about maybe 20 feet of roadway here. It did not share the classification of the rest of 220 in Botetourt County. So VDOT is reclassifying it to make it consistent throughout the whole segment. So before you today is consideration of resolution acknowledging VDOT coordination with the MPOs on these changes. And Mr. King, if I've missed anything on this, please.
You've done a great job. It's largely a lot of data cleanup, so well done.
Great. Any questions?
Questions, for John? Okay. Moving on, we have
Okay.
moving on to the resolution. We have need a resolution of vote of support for the resolution.
Move resolution.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion, resolution passes. Moving on to item 7. Cory and I have talked earlier this week about this item. And before staff begins their presentation on item 7, I wanted to make a few preliminary comments. Earlier this week, I attended a session with Barry Duvall, who's president of the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. One of the reasons why, large part of the reason why Virginia is #1 to do business with by MSNBC's poll is because there are many efforts throughout the Commonwealth of transportation efforts, economic efforts on a regional basis. Keep that in mind. As you recall, I think it was in June when Delegate Alston was here at our June TPO meeting on a wide range of transportation economic development issues, including Interstate 81 and the airport. One theme that he emphasized repeatedly was the critical importance of regional advocacy for our priorities, not only with our delegation, but with decision makers around the Commonwealth, including the administration. I will remind you that no one from our side of the Commonwealth currently sits in a leadership position in either the House or Senate, including the money committees and transportation committees. Not to say that there aren't some from our area that serve on the money committees. They're not the chairman of the committee, nor are they the vice chairman. Keep that in mind. This doesn't mean that our delegation is ineffective by a long shot. Delegate Austin and others, for example, have been successful in their advocacy of additional resources for I-81. Their repeated emphasis on linking I-81 with future economic growth resonates with other lawmakers around the state. There is an additional $175 million that will be allocated to I-81 projects, thanks to some language they secured in the budget that was approved earlier this year. Let me just say this. You don't have someone preaching from the hymn book on your side of the state. The other side of the state's going to get the money. So if the other side of the state gets the money, someone's got to stand up and speak for Southwest. Moving forward, we will need to be even more deliberate and strategic in our collective advocacy efforts. To that end, we've invited representatives of the Blue Ridge Innovation Council to speak at next month's TPO and regional commission meetings on advocacy for improvements to Route 220 and the Roanoke Blacksburg Regional Airport. I'm hopeful we can further together amplify our voice on regionally significant projects. Today, as we learn more about the TED study and the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, I want to reiterate what we learned from Delegate Austin. Be effective advocates for our region. We need to develop a working consensus on targeted and strategic list of transportation priorities that will advance both our short-term and long-term regional economic goals. Corey Williams is going to describe how the TPO and the commission plan to work with you and your staff and other stakeholders in the area to identify these projects. I encourage you to play an active role in this process. Make recommendations on who should participate and share your perspective on regional projects. Let me just say this. In 2018, when I first came on this committee, there was an effort to identify, I think, the top 10 regional projects in the area. It was a book that we used as a marketing tool when we spoke to other people around the state. In 2021, this was the result. It had many ideas, comments, and targeted projects. At the end of the day, what we want to do is to come up with a document of 3 or 4 pages that we can pass around that tells stakeholders and others, politicians, representatives, these are the region's priorities. It's not to be identified as the only priorities, but these are the top priorities so that we can maintain a strong presence in other areas of the state seeking money and also the federal government. So Corey is going to describe how we do this and also speak to the stakeholders of these projects. And with that said, Corey, can you please provide us with the additional background and context?
Well, good afternoon again, Mr. Chair, members of the policy board. I'm going to try to provide a little more background and context to Mr. Norris' introductory remarks. And I'm going to talk about actually 2 studies. I'll speak more about the TED study here in a minute. Study, but we're going to be running this process coterminous with the SED study, and some of you may not be at all that familiar with the SED study. I know I wasn't when I started at the TPO back in the fall, but I've tried to get caught up in the last few months. So the SED study, or the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy document, is updated every year, but at 5-year increments, they do more of a comprehensive update. And in our commission work plan for the year, This is a 5-year update cycle. So, I believe Brian and Amanda's team on the community development side of the commission will be, shepherding through the comprehensive economic development strategy update. And, several members of our staff met with that committee, back, I think in July, specifically Paul Mahoney with the County of Roanoke and, Joe Cobb with the city of Roanoke. And at the end of that meeting, we realized that there's a wonderful opportunity for synergy between the TED study and the SEDS study update. One of the clear messages we took away from that meeting speaks to what Mr. North was talking about earlier in terms of they want the SEDS document also to focus on a process for project prioritization. So that's a little bit of a background. The SED study is important because in 2017, the commission was designated as an economic development district. Brian can correct any of my misstatements. That really positions us to apply for EDA grants. So the SED study is very important. Obviously, there have been in the past and currently some transportation projects in the SED. So you can see the opportunity for some synergy in the planning process for both of these projects. I will point also out that there is language in the SEDS addressing the need for transportation projects. So again, I never get the trick of this. If you could advance it, please. Wait. Okay, thank you. Again, more background and context for the 2018 study. There was a large steering committee and there was a consultant that was brought in. The final document that was produced did a kind of an overview of the economic landscape in the region, did a SWOT analysis, and identified 4 key priorities, which I will touch on in a second. I went back and read some of the meeting notes for the initial 2018 meetings. And this phrase was underlined, and I saw it in a number of places, was how do we tell the story? I think the consultant really emphasized this idea of storytelling. What story are we trying to not just tell ourselves, but others across the state about where the region is and where we envision the region going? These are the priorities that came out of the TED study. I imagine these are fairly consistent with long-range planning activities that we've been doing. Connectivity between the Roanoke Valley and the New River Valley, Roanoke Valley and Lynchburg, connectivity with Botetourt and Franklin counties, and then improving sort of the designated urban development areas and growth areas in the TPO Valley. In 2021, update to the original 2018 study was undertaken. Again, they did a business survey. There were some interviews done with local economic development teams, economic development stakeholders committee. And what this process ended up doing was providing not only an update to the 2018 projects, but developing a list of 18 needs for the TTC to review. And as I understand the process, I wasn't here at the time, but I believe a lot of the kind of project prioritization work was then filtered into the Roanoke Valley Transportation Plan that the TPO was starting to work on, I believe, in 2021-22. So here's just another kind of a screenshot of some of the information that was contained in the 2021. So that leaves us to getting into a little bit of detail on the process for the study of SEDS update and the TED study this year. Our goal is to have a kickoff meeting. Jeremy was working on setting up the details for that. I know he's absent this week. He's talking with the SEDS regional coordinator for our area, and she, I believe, is going to come down and facilitate this meeting. And after that meeting, where our intention is, and this is kind of we're going to have joint SEDS and TEDS focus groups with various stakeholders in the region. We're going to talk to the economic development teams of every locality in the Roanoke Regional Partnership and the Go Virginia folks. Obviously, the transportation planners will be intimately involved in that as well. And there's a growing list, I would say, of private sector stakeholders that we also want to meet with. Developers, members of the freight community, the chamber tag group. So, like I said, a growing list of people. And then once we've sort of put some meat on the bones of what our priorities are and identified perhaps some of the transportation projects that will support that vision, we'll have a wrap-up meeting and try to come up with some regional consensus to narrow down the list to get to what Mr. North was talking about. On the TED study specifically, again, the goal is to identify and promote regionally significant projects, and I think our goal is to have two products: a longer web-based version with, again, some detail, and then a shorter priority project summary. I'm going to share, then some poking around. I want to share, just pass these around. Take a look, pass this down. A priority project summary that we can share with those who are trying to advocate to. So how do we tell our story? The booklet I share with you is from the Northeastern Illinois Infrastructure Initiative. I like this one because it lays out their projects and it lays out the benefits of these projects to the economy of the region. It's very simple, it's short, colorful, grabs the attention. I think it would be very, very helpful if we had such a booklet to share with our regional delegation. I'm stuck again. Can you? Thank you. I'm not going to spend any time on this slide. Purely, Mr. North mentioned that the Blue Ridge Innovation Corridor will be here. This group is bringing together some business community folks in Virginia Tech, and I know they've met with you, Mr. Stewart, to talk about this.
Last week.
Yeah, so they're making the rounds too. We're not trying to compete with them. We're trying to bring them in and see how we work together. So they'll be at our September 26th TPO meeting.
Yeah.
Let me just
So-
say something to that point there.
Yeah.
Mark. You hear about the Blue Ridge Innovation Council Board or whatever, we call it BRIC. You think, oh, well, what's in it for us? Well, what's driving this? It's I-73 signs have been up for years, and I haven't seen I-73 in Virginia, except the sign. And so we're never gonna get any money for I-73, so the CTP is gonna rescind that effort in the Commonwealth, and they're gonna focus on 224. 16 state delegates and senators have signed on to support this effort. Anyone going to BML later this year, I think our cities and towns, it would be good if you could advocate to get that in the letter that they write to the governor for budget consideration. We, on the county side, did that last week and asked that that be included in the letter to the governor for budget considerations. So go out probably next month. We need an effort like that to get money for the 220 because it's going to not only help the roadway, but it's going to help business connects to 81. It's going to help the Freeland Biomedical Center. It's going to put together the technology between Wake Forest medical program and the Freeland program. It's also going to help Virginia Tech. So there's a lot more behind it than just the road. It's getting the road improvements so you can help the economy, because you can't have economic development without good transportation. And that's what's needed. And since I-73 is so costly, we've got to focus on another angle, and that's where 220 comes in. So we'll learn more about that next month when they come up here and talk to us. But I want you to know this is alive and well, and it's stirring around the Commonwealth. And I showed a letter I got a copy of to the VACO people, and they saw state delegates and senators that signed on. So this has got some momentum. Just needs some money.
Yeah, we had a brief conversation with the BRIC folks a few weeks ago, and I pointed out that AL Philpott died in 1991. There's no secret force in the General Assembly that can just willy-nilly move funds over to support a highway project on our side of the state. So how can you help? Obviously, participate in the kickoff meeting, or in the small focus group meetings we're gonna have with various stakeholders, get this up and running. If you have additional folks that you know of, maybe businesses in your locality that think could share some valuable insight with us, let us know. We'll certainly reach out and engage them in this process. Lastly, I'll mention that I put a real quick article in the packet. It's time for economic developers to focus on transportation. Please feel free to share this with your economic development teams, just to remind them how important transportation is to. They already know. It's a succinct article. I think it makes the case here. So with that, I will take any questions anyone may have.
Any questions? Sorry. Don't be afraid, you tell the answers.
Anyway, we look forward to working with you all to get this off the ground and get a list together so we can get moving.
I do have one question. What's your vision of this timeline?
Well, I think we're gonna do the kickoff meeting within the next few months, and then do the focus groups in the fall, first part of the spring. Hopefully that would allow us enough time, I believe, to finish the reports by the end of the. I don't want to be overly prescriptive or get bogged down in. I want to make sure that we're as comprehensive as we are as in data collection and meeting with folks. So I don't want to put any undue artificial timeline on finishing at least the TED study. I know the SED study probably has more of a definitive timeline.
Right.
Get that done, but since we're jointly doing those two work products together, I think the timelines will largely flow together.
So you gotta have the SED study done so that you can continue to get federal
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
To our. Right.
Yes, North.
Tony.
On that point, we've had discussions at the TTC, and I know our VDOT friends might not like to think this far in advance, but the goal is to have this for Smart Scale Round 7, which would begin next fall, and the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, which applications are due next fall, because we want to prioritize these projects for that regional and state funding.
Yeah, I'll underscore Cody's point. Phil North's point that he made earlier. Richmond, Northern Virginia, and Hampton Roads have transportation authority. They have their own resources that they can devote to transportation projects. We don't have local revenue that we can devote to projects. So we need to be very targeted and deliberate in what we're advocating for. So, any other questions?
Just let me clarify what you said. These aren't the only ones we're gonna apply for. It's smart.
Correct.
But this is not taking the place of any other priorities or desire fund. This is just the big,
They have to start somewhere.
they got it started. Right. All right, anyone else got any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Tori. Moving, and by the way, there was no action on this.
No.
Number 8, consideration of transportation technical committee bylaws, page 34 of your meeting package. Chair recognizes Tori.
All right, thanks again, Mr. Chair. A little reluctant to bring this before the body. This probably could have been a consent agenda item because it's very, very minor, but the TTC bylaws stipulate that before we make a bylaws change to the TTC bylaws, we have to get approval from the TPO. So if you go to the next slide, it's not a solution in search of a problem, but it's a very minor problem. The TTC has elections for their chair and vice chair in every even numbered year. And sometimes there's a struggle to get a quorum at the July meeting. The current bylaws specify that the election has to take place at the July meeting. All this does is says that all this language does is stipulate that that election can take place at the June meeting or the July meeting. We had a couple little kinks when we're working on the language, but I think we've got it to a point now where it's ready to go. So all we need is a a voice vote to say that we can do it at the June meeting or the July. Again, not a solution in search of a problem, but a very, very minor problem that, again, in the future will probably be in the consent agenda, so.
Any questions? Having no questions, it'd be a voice vote. Do I have a motion? Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item 9, other business. Come before the PTO. Does anyone have any other business come before the PTO today? Okay. How about comment period by RVTPO policy board members for the public? Anyone got anything they'd like to? Got
Just, not, about this body, but just an FYI for everybody. If you haven't heard, the Special Olympics Virginia is gonna host the first ever Southwest Virginia playing bowl at ROA on September the 28th. It's really not a public festival like you might have seen if you've been up to the one at Dulles, but for a first attempt, it is a plane donated by FedEx. It's a Boeing 757, and teams of, I believe it's 25, hook up on a rope and tow that airplane about 12 feet. And the team that wins the fastest gets bragging rights. But what it's really all about is you're raising money for a bunch of very great Special Olympic athletes. And it's really a great event. So you may get an outreach from Special Olympics to looking for sponsors, or maybe to put a team together. So if you're out there, we'd appreciate you stepping up. Everyone gets nothing out of it other than satisfaction. So we would appreciate any backing that you got there. And then just a sales pitch for us, I was telling Peter here a minute ago, it's just proof that when you fly local, you get the airline's attention. Delta Airlines will be adding a 4th round trip to Atlanta starting November the 11th, which is an ask that we've been after them for quite a while. That will open up 2 of their major connecting banks in Atlanta that we weren't getting before. So it's really a good boost to the connectivity of the global aviation system.
Good news. Can I bring my flying mower to help them do that plane? I'm not sure I'm gonna make much difference.
I will tell you, there are fun teams, not just competitive teams.
Oh, fun team. Okay, Mr. Ratcher, he likes teams.
Are you going to run this year?
We are not gonna do the run this year. We just, that takes a lot of manpower that really right now we don't have, and that takes a lot of coordination with FAA. So we're gonna try to pull this one off, and then we'll go back and see what we can do going forward.
Hey, good deal.
You need to have a pickleball tournament in the runway.
Let me just say something about the airport. Nice job on the improvements of the parking lot. But I didn't know this. You gotta pay for your ticket. You can pay for your ticket inside the terminal.
Correct.
Which is efficient.
We've got 2 pay-per-foot machines, one in the terminal, one out in the walkway. Unfortunately, the renovation project on the parking lot has got us not working in the walkway right now, but you can pay with credit card anywhere.
Right.
Pay at the exit gates wherever, but if you want to pay cash, or if you want to not have to dig your wallet out of your hip pocket when you're at the exit lane, you can pay for it in the terminal.
I told them I knew Mike Stewart, but they wanted to charge me double
They
that.
probably did. Probably did.
Anyway, thank you. Anyone else got anything good to tell us about? What's going on around other areas? Everyone got the smart scale application ready to roll? Done. Yeah. It comes around faster than you realize, doesn't it? Okay, very good. All right, well, with that said then,
Mr. Chair.
yeah,
I will offer for the group, that Chairman North mentioned the meeting that's taking place this evening, with the projects with the city of Roanoke and Roanoke County. And one of the things I've spoken with both city and county staff about, and Chairman North, in terms of putting together some information about, we've been very successful in the Roanoke Valley with a tremendous amount of money that's been allocated toward investments on that 460 Orange Avenue corridor from Interstate 581 all the way to Dalton at 220. a sum of in excess of $140 million of funds have been allocated there. And so, while we're advancing those projects as they have been brought along with a series of individual projects, it really speaks of a broader picture of what that change will make over time, of complete opportunity to really change that corridor and improve its overall efficiency as well as its available capacity for redevelopment, revitalization, and a community, the community's future, if you will. So we'll be working to try to put together that information in a little bit more of a corridor whole perspective. It's information that both city, county, VDOT, and this body could use to help put into perspective. While there are individual pieces of projects and individual projects, it fits into a framework of a much bigger overall community and corridor plan. And I know as we worked with some changes along the 220 corridor with some of the signal operations that we're looking at doing, it was actually a sort of an understood point that while in times, in order to make things more efficient, it may be a little bit more inconvenient to cross across 220 in the example we used on that corridor. But I spoke with our friends in Franklin County and just simply saying, yeah, but as you pay that price here in Franklin County, we're making those same changes up in Roanoke County. So we will get you to the hospital faster. We will get you to the mall faster. We'll get you to your doctor's office faster in terms of, it's a benefit along the whole corridor. And so I think anytime you sit in your own front yard and look about the idea of making maybe something more difficult crossing the street right there at your front yard, it's hard to make anyone like that, right? In terms of, but when you step back and look at it and you realize that there could be benefits more broadly if we apply that, not just in my front yard, but if, at each of these places where we can make our roadway more efficient, if they were applied along the whole corridor, then we all benefit. We all carry a little bit of maybe challenge with changing our normal routine or pattern. But so there are a number of, we call them alternative intersection designs, but alternative ways of making more U-turn maneuvers than we have historically with left turn. They're indeed safer. They are operationally much stronger when you get into peak hour operations along a corridor perspective overall. And it really makes for a quicker commute for everyone. And from a future perspective, it gives you the capacity in your network to be able to grow, to be able to redevelop some portion of your system that is being underutilized. Mr. Darden's comment about the number of businesses are vacant, but the opportunities to revitalize those and have capacity in your network to make them work within the framework of the asphalt that's already there. And as we make those our network more efficient and lessen the need to widen it, it makes it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly because you're not making a longer crossing distance. The changes that we're on the cusp, we're in the procurement exercise right now. You may recall this discussion we've had about we're changing the signals there at 220 at Crossbow and at the Home Depot Lowe's and on down the corridor, where you'll be able to go north and south on 220 like you always have, be able to turn left off of 220 into the side streets like you always have. But coming out of the side streets, you'll be able to turn left coming out of the side streets, but you won't be able to go straight across the street anymore. You'll have to turn right, like a U-turn or do some other measure. It really represented less than 1% of the traffic on 220 that actually tries to cross. Most water flows to the Mississippi, not tries to cross the Mississippi. The same is true of traffic on 220. And also on 460 Orange Avenue, you'll find that those percentages change a little bit. The majority of the flow of traffic is getting to 460 Orange Avenue because of its function within the classification that we just talked about, that the function it serves within the community. And so, we're going to be backing up to try to make sure that we package what's going on along that 460 Orange Avenue corridor in a little bit broader framework. And so I just share that for the education of the group. Public hearing tonight, I'm sure we will hear from some folks that have concerns with the alternative approaches, but they do offer, I think, a lot of opportunity for fixing some of today's challenge points, but also enabling the future is a real key element. So, Mr. Chair, just wanted to share a few comments of work that's taking place between the county and the city and our staff here at VDOT.
My measure of improvement when everything's implemented and working, it doesn't take me 35 minutes at 7:30 in the morning to get into Salem near Ridgewood Farms. then it's working. But the other measure is when people walk up to you and say, hey, I don't know what you did, but man, things are moving faster along 460 like they did when we synchronized all the lights from the city into the county. And they thought we pulled some magic trick out of a hat. So when I hear those comments, then that's when I know it's good. What I think the biggest challenge tonight's gonna be if you have a lot of people show up. I'm sure there'll be some. You're gonna have those people who are naysayers. They're, as a matter of fact, they're traffic engineers again. They just didn't tell us that. But they all know better than anybody else. And what you gotta do is you gotta give them the positive back, make them believers. They're the ones that didn't like the concept of a traffic circle. And now they're like, why didn't we do this years ago? So that's the element out there that thinks they know more than the profession. And unfortunately, they're the citizens and they're always right to be proven otherwise. So I would welcome my colleagues in the city who are able to, elected officials, I might add, to also be out there because they're looking for us to be out there. So I encourage Ms. Shepherd to come from Benton because her side of 460 is opposite mine. So we're gonna both be there. Now, I won't tell you, I'm not gonna have the same clothes I have on tonight. I might have on some camouflage clothes. And not really, I plan on being there for a bit. Yes.
I'm Barbara Dirk, Connect Now, and Roanoke Valley is working on a Vision Zero plan. There's been infrastructure that's been put down, and I'll go by 9th Street, you see a cycle track, a double wide bicycle lane on one side of the road. And one of the benefits of that is that the snowplow can actually get in there and remove the snow in inclement weather. And try Shenandoah. I can get to the Red Sox game really fast by taking Shenandoah now. So oh, maybe I shouldn't have told you about Shenandoah as a way to avoid the traffic lights. But check out the accommodations that have been put down this summer.
Did you ride to the game last?
My husband drove.
I noticed that going coming. Last few days I had to go over there. It's pretty nice.
People are questioning why the green, and you'll go to Valley View, and when you see that reverse diamond on Valley View Boulevard, you'll see the green, but it does designate the corridor.
Right, thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I can add one thing I forgot, just maybe I've noticed everybody. September the 19th, which is a Thursday, every 3 years, the FAA requires the airport to do an emergency mock exercise. We do them every year, tabletop wise, but every 3 years, we have to actually get out and exercise. And it brings in all of our mutual aid partners. So we've got primarily the police and fire from all 3 jurisdictions around us, or 4 jurisdictions around us, and a number of others. And unlike past years where we've done the exercise on the airport, inside the fence, no other distractions. This year, we're gonna actually do it over in our property that's on the countryside, side of 581. So there'll be some activity over there, well signed, hopefully a lot of media attention. But if you live in that area, or if you're moving around and do business in the countryside area, around the area of the old Loft Pro Shop, you may see some unusual activity there around the countryside park area on September 19th.
What time's it scheduled to start?
It is scheduled, I believe, to start at 9.
Okay, thank you. All right, there being no further comments from anyone? I'll vote to adjourn.
So. Second.
And adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
All say goodbye.
So, you directly. Did you have presidents?